The following is a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to Missouri Milestones, the podcast here on the Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. This season 1, but it's episode 26, so nearly 4 months or 7 months, I guess, into this. If I could do my math, my high school math teacher would shoot me. Here it is, November the 13th, 2025. Guy Newcomb, the scoreboard guy, alongside Kent Mueller from Playing on Sports. Hey, do us a favor, sign up and follow us on Twitter. It's at Scoreboard Guy, at Playing_Sports, and at Missouri_Sports. Hey, let your friends know. Tell your friends, tell your family. Hey, you may have somebody that deserves to be on this list that we don't have. Go to our website or go to our Twitter accounts and just click on the pinned tweets for each of our Twitter handles, or X if you prefer. You don't have to pay membership dues to this. There's no secret handshakes, no secret door knocks. Just have to have accomplished anything that's on this list. Hey, reach those pedestals, and we want to brag on you. We want to brag on your community. So let us know. Again, you're tuning in to episode 26 here in season 1 of Missouri Milestones, the podcast. I'll kick it over to Kent Mueller here, who's usually at our score desk, but not today. Kent, what's going on?
Well, we started Missouri Milestones with 1,000-point career scoring list for both boys and girls. We now have over 1,500 boys and over 1,300 girls. It won't be long before we have combined lists totaling more than 3,000 Missouri basketball athletes. Those lists will continue to grow as we dig out more of Missouri high school history, and also as we record and recognize those who will cross that threshold each season going forward. Due to the strong response for the basketball career stats, we have expanded to include 3 stats for football and 5 stats for volleyball, both boys and girls. The popularity of these lists has naturally led to our podcast presentation of Missouri Milestones. In each episode, we sit down with one of these standout athletes to hear their story straight from the source. The work, the mindset, and the moments that make it happen. If you are a coach, an athletic director, an athlete, or a proud sports parent, this is the podcast made for you. And the easiest way to see the list as they get updated is to follow us on X. Follow Guy Newcomb at Scoreboard Guy, and follow me, Kent Mueller, at Playing_Sports. By following us, you will get updated lists as they become available. Now that you are following us on X and you know how to contact us, let's get to the Missouri Milestones interview of the week. The last couple of weeks, we have heard from athletes currently in high school just as they crossed career milestones for their entry into Missouri Milestones. This week, we have one athlete from our list, but he has made the impact of more than one during his high school career. Today, you will meet Mac Whitehead. Mac completed his Seneca High School career in 1993, having rushed for 4,947 yards. Guy and I caught up with Mac, which is something a lot of defenders were unable to do. Mac is busy right now as he is the head football coach at Clever High, who continues their postseason this Friday. We are glad we did catch up with him because you will like the result. Stay tuned for our Missouri Milestones, the podcast interview with Mac Whitehead. Missouri Milestones, the podcast, because history isn't just written, it's earned.
Things are a little tight for Terrence right now. But they won't be for long, because Central Bank makes it easier for customers like Terrence to dream bigger.
More room would be nice.
With mortgage solutions that can open the door to more space.
That's what I'm talking about.
For his growing family.
Growing family?
Honey, guess what?
You got this, buddy.
Unplug and unlock. Road trips on easy mode. and a really big touchscreen for the biggest jams. And qualify for up to $7,500 in tax credit with the Equinox EV. Unlock the tech and the value with the 2025 Equinox EV, America's most affordable over 315-mile range EV. And Chevrolet, together let's drive.
The following is a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network.
And welcome back to the Missouri Sports Network here. It's Missouri Milestones, the podcast, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Here it is Thursday. It's about 5 after 9 here. We're going to continue our podcast here on this Thursday. We bring in with 4,947 career rushing yards here in episode 26. The 1994 graduate of Seneca High School, part of running back U there for a long time. Mac Whitehead. Coach Whitehead, thanks for your time today.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
And you know it, and I think I told you this last time you were on, that in order to be a friend of the show, you have to make 3 appearances. And so you've done that, so officially a friend of the show.
Perfect.
And plus, we've had lunch together probably 5 times this year already on Mondays. So
that's
certainly
right.
Appreciate that. And well, Coach, we're talking about going back a little ways. Now I'm older than you. I graduated 6 years prior to you, but got to see you play on a couple of occasions in high school. Take us back to those memories you have of high school. Maybe that first time you got that varsity start, maybe as a freshman or sophomore, and what it was like and some of the guys that you played with.
I got my first varsity start in 1991. I was able to start at free safety my sophomore year, and that was a great year for us. We wound up finishing the season getting beaten in the semifinals by St. Louis John Burroughs. And that's one of the games that I remember adamantly. We had a chance to win the game, and we had them down and 2 or 3 minutes left to go in the game, and fourth down play, and our outside linebacker tips a pass, and normally that's a good thing, but they had a wide receiver slide right underneath it, and he picked up the first down, and then they went in to score, and I think we lost 14-13 or 15-13, something like that. So even then, one thing I remember is as a sophomore, I didn't really realize that the next game, if we would have won that game, we would have been playing in the state championship. I was just a dumb 14, 15-year-old kid out there having fun with those guys. So, and that group of seniors with Jim Hoover and Cheyenne Cummings and, Jason Hembry and all those guys, Charlie Hoff, that was probably one of the highlights of my high school career, that sophomore year, getting to play in all those, postseason games with those guys. So, that kind of set the tone for my group as sophomores, wanting to play, extra football, so to speak. So, that was a lot of fun.
As you look back on that, even going back earlier in that with the likes of Shannon Crouch, we've already had on here as part of the Missouri Milestones. Growing up, being able to watch him, that had to be exciting, a state title, and I think a runner-up there as well. But what was it like growing up in Seneca?
Football, that was, a little kid, that's all you wanted to do. I've got 2 older brothers, and my oldest brother graduated in 83, and then my middle brother graduated in 85. And, watching them play, I didn't probably see a football game until I was in junior high, because I was behind the bleachers with a bunch of cups rolled into a ball, playing our own game. And so, but that's all you ever wanted to do in Seneca, and that's, part of growing up in a town like that, where you're so tradition rich that little kids, that's all you want to do is play on Friday night. And so, when I was growing up, like I told you before, Shannon was it, man. I mean, I wanted to be Shannon Crouch, and, I couldn't wear 12. Coach Hodge didn't let me wear 12 because he retired it. But so I had to pick another number. But other than that, that's all you ever wanted to do as a little kid, was to be a Seneca Indian on Friday night.
Talk a little bit about those rivalries you had with other teams. Obviously, when I asked Shannon the same question, he said everybody in the Big Eight. I mean, we hated everybody in the Big Eight, and but what stands out to you? Whether it be, I know Mount Vernon was pretty good at that time, and had been for a long time. But who were some of those rivalries you remember, and maybe even some of the individuals?
I think, our biggest rival, and you mentioned it, we knew, when we played a Big Eight school, we were going to get their best game. And that was, I think that kind of raised the level of play for us. Is, we knew that going in each week that we were going to have to play our best game. And, rivalries, I remember battling against Aurora and Mount Vernon. And, when I was in high school, my sophomore year, they had Heath Benson, the running back, and that was a great game my sophomore year. And then my junior year, they come down, and Dustin Baldwin's the quarterback, and Brandon Schmidley and those guys, and they beat us 17-14 at our place my junior year. Kind of knocked us out of the playoffs, because back then only one team was going to go on. It wasn't like you set this tournament up and you get a chance to play week 10. That's what I tell the kids. I was like, that's probably one of the biggest playoff differences back when we were in high school was, you had a 4-team district, and the last 3 games was it. And you either made the playoffs or you didn't. And, and I can remember my junior year going ahead and playing week 10. We went to Carl Junction week 10, and we knew we weren't going to be in the playoffs, and that, that's kind of set the tone going into our senior year, that, hey, we've got to buckle down. We got to take care of our business, because, no one wants to stay home week 10. We finished 7-3 my junior year, and that was kind of a disappointment because we didn't get to play a week 11. But, Aurora, all the Jernigan, we played against Jernigan and those guys at Aurora, that was a Fraunenbarger. And, I can remember our senior year, we get rained out on a Friday night. There was a big rainstorm, and, that pushed our game to Saturday afternoon. And, that was an experience, being able to play on Saturday afternoon in Aurora after, being rained out on a Friday night. And, that was a great game too. It's the only high school football game that I did not score my junior and senior year. I didn't score a touchdown that Saturday. And so that, that was one of the things I remember about that Saturday game, was they were able to keep me out of the end zone. But, our fullback Austin Lear and Don Cox, they both of them scored a couple of touchdowns. So, but, those were some rivalry games. If you ask me who my number one rival is Mount Vernon. And so that right there, I tell people I'll go to a lot of schools and I'll coach at a lot of schools, but I won't wear green. So
I had the exact conversation with Scott Bailey, and he graduated at Lamar, and I went down to a football game down to Webb City, and he was assistant coach. And for some reason, I had a green sweatshirt on. I was just walking on the sidelines. He goes, "Newcomb, get the heck out of here! You got green on. You can't even be over here." But
that's right.
It was still a lot of fun growing up in that era. Well, who are some of the people, maybe coaches, parents, family, that really kind of influenced you and what you did?
Well, I think you can't play football in that era without mentioning Coach Hodge. He's probably one of the main reasons I got into coaching myself, was, his impact on us growing up. You can't say enough good things about him. He I try to coach very similar to him, as far as, hey, we're going to do things the right way. We're going to take care of each other. We're going to be, good sports on the field. We're going to play hard, and we're going to be remembered as hard-hitting football team, but we're going to do it from whistle to whistle. Mike Used, our offensive line coach, he was also our head baseball coach. He's another guy that, I really look up to, as far as, doing things the right way, and just how he coached. And, I look up to my 2 older brothers. Like I said, I grew up watching, my 2 older brothers play, and, of course, Shannon Crouch and Scott Cooper and, that group of seniors, Neil Used. And, that's who kind of influenced me as far as, hey, I want to be great. And I want to be, I want to kind of leave an impression on Seneca football. So.
If you could go back, to any point in your high school career and play one game over again, maybe it's a game that got away from you. We may have already talked about this off the air, this game, but what game, if you could go back and play one game over, would you play?
Oh man, I think the last one. If I could go back to 1993 and on that Monday night and go back to Bolivar and have a redo, that's the one. We kind of that year, our defense, we had 8 shutouts that year out of our first 10 games. And I think people don't realize just how stingy our defense was. I think one of the things that didn't happen for us is we really didn't get tested until that Bolivar game. And you talk about kids all the time. How do you respond when you're down, or how do you respond when things aren't going your way? We really didn't have an answer in the second half. Things weren't going our way. And, if we could go back and play that game again, that's the one. I'd like another shot at tackling Lance a couple of times.
It was I was on the sideline in that game for Bolivar, and I remember I think you got a punt return and maybe just about broke it for a touchdown that would have put you guys up maybe 3 touchdowns in the first half or something like that. Do you remember that play?
I do, and and it was kind of got caught right there at the end, and that's one of those. I think if we get loose there and we score that and go up 21, then I think that definitely shifts the momentum. But it didn't happen, and I think we went 3 and out, and, punted, and then like I said, they scored and got the 2-point after that off that the scramble off of the bad snap, and I think going in 14-8, they got the ball coming out at the second half, and they score again, and now it's 4. Now they take the lead 14-15, and now we're in a place where we've kind of never been before, playing from behind. And back then we weren't a pass. We threw the ball every 4 or 5 times, maybe a game. And Coach Hodge said, if you wanted to watch us pass, come to the pregame, because we throw it all over the place during pregame. But we ran toss sweep probably 30 times a game. So Coach Potts, I got to know Coach Potts after meeting him at some of the all area meetings, and my brother wound up doing his student teaching and Bolivar, and so I kind of made that connection with Coach Potts, and he's a great guy, so I have tremendous respect for Coach Potts.
Very good. Well, Kent Miller from Playing on Sports is alongside, and I'm sure he's got some questions here.
Well, you played in the early to mid 90s. You're coaching now in the mid 2020s. A few things have changed. In your observation, describe some of the changes in the game itself, the specialization of players, nutrition, conditioning, those types of things. What do you see different?
Well, the game has changed so much since the early 90s. I tease kids all the time, our conditioning in Seneca in 1992, 93 was A&K custom baling. That was Alan and Kay Lohr had a baling. They made square bells, little square bells. And I bet they hired, probably 8 or 9 high school football players. And that's what we did all summer on the Big Prairie on 43 Highway between Joplin and Seneca. We're hauling anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 bells, every 2 or 3 days. So that was our summer conditioning, was out there in the hay fields. And now, the weight room is such a important part of high school athletics, not only in school, but, off season work and summer. And when I say off season, I'm talking about as soon as, your season's done in November, December, you turn right around, and those kids that aren't playing basketball or not wrestling, they're right back coming to off-season workouts and trying to get better. And that just wasn't the case in the early 90s. most of us were 3-sport athletes. And, right now it's hard to find a 3-sport athlete anymore that is committed to, a fall sport, winter sport, and a spring sport. So that's something that's changed quite a bit as well. Nutrition, with today, kids can, a lot of them have their own nutritionists. Like they'll follow or have someone that is checking up on them and making sure that, they're getting the right stuff in their body. And, that's part of the physicality of the game. Is you look at kids today and they're bigger, faster, stronger than what they were in the early 90s. And that's led to some of the changes as far as how you can hit kids anymore. Back in 93, 94, I was on the punt return team, and I was just looking for someone that wasn't paying attention to me, because that was green light, go. And now, you got to get your head in front and you got to use your hands to lead. So, there's been a lot of changes in the game, but I think it's for the better.
Well, you brought back a lot of memories of those square bales, both packing them on the rack and also packing them in the barn. So
Yeah,
that was a good workout.
That was 7 cents a bale, and I used to tell kids all the time, that was good money for us back then, 7 cents a bale.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I didn't get a per bale, but it was probably like $1.40 an hour, so something like that. What, as far as going into the future, do you see changes coming down in the next 5 years? What, more of the same trends, or what do you see?
I see football, as it is. It's probably, there's only so many things that you can do offensively. There's not a lot of reinventing the wheel now. It kind of goes in cycles. So, like when we were growing up, it was run heavy. And then, in the early 2000s, all of a sudden you start seeing a lot more spread. Well, you take our team, for example, we're a spread inside zone team, but our last 3 opponents have been flex bone. And so, you see that transition back to, triple option. There's a lot of these guys that are going down to Arkansas and going to the camps down there and learning how to run the flex bone really well. And, and that's what Mountain Grove does. And that's what we'll see Friday night is, and like I said, St. James last week was the same thing. So, you see that, run, triple option, spread, and now it's, everyone's cycling back to run triple option. So,
which is interesting to me because I go back 20 years before you, and it was triple option. That we were one of the few at the time to do that. But I spent my entire high school career with the triple option, which was a lot of fun to run.
Yeah, and that's when I spent 3 seasons at Southwest Baptist. I spent 3 semesters at SBU, and we were Maryland I. We were that old 3-back I and coming downhill at you. And then my that winter I transferred to Missouri Southern, and they went to split back veer. And so my last 2 years of college, playing under Coach Lance and Coach Gregory, we were 2-back, midline, inside veer, outside veer. So it was kind of different for us, but it was a lot of fun.
So what you're saying is, going into the future, we will see a cycling of what we've seen before, but only by kids who are bigger, stronger, faster, better conditioned, better nutrition.
Absolutely. It's I look at our kids today. You take our senior wide receiver, Lucas Peebles. He's a 5'10", 5'11", 185-pound kid. And when he's wearing pads, he looks like some of the kids I played against, in college, who are, upper level, like from Northwest Missouri State. They always seem to have great looking kids, and Lucas is that type. And that's because of how serious he takes himself in the weight room, his nutrition, and that's the way all the athletes are right now. You look out there and all the kids at this time of the year, when you get to this level, they're just they're kids that have dedicated themselves to the weight room and taking care of themselves. And it's night and day between when I played. I wouldn't want to play against these kids. That's for sure.
Coach, you mentioned Mountain Grove, and obviously this is airing on a Thursday. So tomorrow night you've got Mountain Grove. What do you know about Mountain Grove, and what are you going to have to do to come out on top?
Well, they're, like I said earlier, they're a flex bone team. Coach Swafford, I've got a tremendous amount of respect for him and what he's able to do, what he did at Ava and what he's able to do at Mountain Grove. And, they've got a great athletic quarterback and a fullback that, gets downhill quick. And, they're running midline and inside veer out of the flex bone, and they keep you guessing. And, that's something we've had to really focus on this week in practice, is being disciplined on with our defenses. Hey, who's got dive, who's got quarterback, who's got pitch, and you got to do it every play. We take the football out of it and during practice, so it doesn't really matter who has the ball. We just need to make sure that everybody is taken care of and accounted for. Defensively, that's where I feel like we can use some of our athletic kids on the edge, because they're going to man us up across. And, we've got two wide receivers who I believe are all state caliber wide receivers, with our sophomore, number 4, Trenton Allen, and then I mentioned him earlier, number 5, Lucas Peebles. And so, what we're going to try to do is find those one-on-one matchups where we can and create advantages for our athletic kids. So, it should be a lot of fun. I hope it's a high-scoring game, and I hope we score more points than they do, for sure.
Now that's at Mountain Grove, right?
Yes, it's at Mountain Grove, and that's a great facility. That's what I tell our kids. This is something that you want to remember this time. And I reference, the games that the big games that I played in. Earlier we were talking about Mount Vernon, and I can remember that Week 9 game. They were 9-0, and we were 9-0, and they were ranked number 2 in the state, and we were ranked number 3 in the state. And we pull into Mountaineer Stadium and at 5:00, and there's 3 TV camera trucks there, and about 4 inches of snow on the ground. And, there was already probably 300 or 400 people in the stands. And it was an amazing atmosphere, and that's what they're going to have this week. And we talk about, especially with my seniors, they're coming off 0-20 and then 5-5 last year. This is all brand new territory for them. And, and I want them to, remember and appreciate this time.
2 of the toughest places to play in Southwest Missouri are Seneca and Mountain Grove.
Yeah, it was a long time there. I can't remember how many years. You put me on the spot, but, Seneca didn't lose a home game in the 80s and 90s very often. In fact, we always, we knew that we weren't going to get out hit wearing red, and so that was kind of our motto. When we played at home, we don't get out hit. And, the pit is what we call it. It's a special place to play, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, again, congratulations on being part of the Missouri Milestones, the podcast, and being on the list. And there are no dues. There's no secret handshakes or secret knocks on the door. You're on the list by virtue of what you've already done. And
I appreciate that.
We greatly appreciate your time here, and I hope to catch up with you again. Go out Friday night. Best of luck to you. Just hope everybody stays safe traveling and things like that. But go out and get the best effort, and we'll see what happens Friday night.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I appreciate you guys doing this and having us. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you.
Bet. And always a joy. Got to catch up with Shannon Crouch here a couple of weeks ago, and he's the new chief of police in Lamar, Missouri. And I thought, man, a guy from Seneca going to Lamar to be the chief of police. But I asked him, I said, do you know who the first chief of police was at Lamar? And he said, yep, I got a picture of him right here in my office. It was Wyatt Earp.
Really?
Yeah, first chief of police in Lamar, Missouri. But, Coach, hey, best of luck. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Watch the Missouri Milestones here on the Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow.